And with that, let's welcome an NFL writer for CBSSports.com, Tyler Sullivan. Sully, that's the big news obviously here, but there are 5 teams that need to make a splash in free agency, starting with the Dallas Cowboys, right? Let's start there. We talked about this in the last segment, Sully. Jerry Jones noted the Cowboys did not suffer, in his estimation, in free agency last year by not getting important extensions done early. Not sure anyone agrees with that one. How can they do better this year?
Well, it's important that you brought up the Philadelphia Eagles to start this, because you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, you look at the Washington Commanders, the 2 teams that were in the NFC Championship just so happen to play in the division with the Dallas Cowboys. So clearly they need to make some moves here this offseason, already doing it, restructuring CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott to give themselves some wiggle room, about $54 million in available space. Now, they need a lot of things. We talk a lot about the backfield, and they need a running back. The offensive line certainly needs to be addressed. One of the sneaky things I think they need to address as well is that secondary wide receiver position. So for me, I'm looking at a splash of STEFON DIGGS. There's clearly a connection there with Trayvon Diggs, his brother, in the secondary. So you look at that, you say, okay, there's the connection. And then there's also the need, as I referenced, another secondary wide receiver in this offense. CeeDee Lamb, we know, bona fide top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. Beyond that, Jalen Tolbert, 610 yards receiving last year. They can do better. And STEFON DIGGS, coming off the torn ACL, might be willing to sign somewhat of a short-term, prove-it type of deal to reestablish his value in the league, and he could do so in Big D with Dak Prescott as his quarterback.
Well, unfortunately, Jerry Jones just keeps talking here. He has said in filling the holes on the Cowboys roster, I'm not looking at free agency to fill any voids. He just keeps... Poor Cowboys fans. That's all I got to say. Poor Cowboys fans. I know Jenny, unfortunately, is one of those. Or your husband
My
is.
husband, but
yes.
I still have to deal with it, so you know.
That's okay.
Yeah.
All right, now let's move on to the Detroit Lions here, a team with high aspirations but lacking in defensive prowess. Where can they make a splash this year in the free agency?
Yeah, I think it's edge rusher. This team is right on the door of getting over that hump, getting to an NFC Championship, Super Bowl conversations. They've been one of the most prolific teams during the regular season, but now it's winning time. They need to push their chips to the middle of the basket. And so to me, a guy that I think is really interesting is Khalil Mack. I know a lot of us talked earlier this offseason about a potential Myles Garrett trade with the Detroit Lions, but to me, if they can't do that or don't want to do that, if they don't want to go all out in terms of trading a ton of draft capital, then signing him to an extension, Khalil Mack is no shortage of a consolation prize. Yes, he's a little bit longer in the tooth, but former Defensive Player of the Year, is a legitimate bona fide star still to this day. Pro Bowl type of a player, 6 sacks a year ago. You put him in this defense opposite of a healthy Aiden Hutchinson, now you're starting to really look like a defense that can win in the postseason in January, hopefully in February. The Lions, they have a decent pressure rate, but not a lot of sacks last year, and a part of that is because of the injury to Aiden Hutchinson. But again, you put Khalil Mack opposite of him on the edge, that is a fearsome duo as you can find in the NFL.
Yeah, he had 17 sacks back in 2023, so hopefully if he gets back to that form, that would be incredible for them. Look, the Eagles made some moves. We talked about it at the top of the show, but still, defensive tackle Milton Williams racked up 5 sacks. We talked about those sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 24 tackles, 12 pressures, 10 quarterback hits. He is hitting free agency. When we look at the Vikings and their struggles this last year, is Milton a top priority for Minnesota?
Yeah, I think so. And it is interesting because Philadelphia, you have to check your watch every few seconds because you don't know who they're going to re-sign, if Milton Williams is even going to hit the open market by next week. But right now, as it stands, he is going to be a free agent. And if you're the Minnesota Vikings, I think that this is kind of a sneaky need. I think if you were looking at it from like 10,000 feet, you would say, I don't know if the Minnesota Vikings need help along the defensive line. Brian Flores was leading one of the best pass rushes in the NFL last year. Why would they double down on this? this? Well, it's not necessarily doubling down. They're very good at applying pressure off the edge. The issue for them over the past couple of years has been applying that pressure on the interior. And as we just saw with Milton Williams in the Philadelphia Eagles defense a year ago, applying the pressure in the middle is what's going to help you win a Super Bowl and defeat the likes of Patrick Mahomes. And the Vikings are in just such a very favorable situation right now. I know a lot has been talked about them not giving the franchise tag to Sam Darnold. I, for one, think it's a good thing. I think you roll the dice here with J.J. McCarthy, provided that he's healthy coming off the meniscus tear, and now you have a young quarterback on a rookie deal, and the best thing that you can do to prove that he can have success is build an awesome roster around him, and that also includes the defensive side of the ball with Milton Williams on the interior.
Yeah, and their decision not to franchise tag Darnold, and maybe they invest in him, maybe they don't. If they don't, they will have some extra cash, and J.J. McCarthy is on that rookie deal, and maybe they'll spend it on Milton. Let's move on now to the Denver Broncos. They took a big step forward, Sully, in 2024. They made the NFL playoffs for the first time since 2015 after rookie quarterback Bo Nix led them to a 10-7 record. Who should they jump on, though, in order to take yet another step forward in 2025?
Yeah, it's funny because so much was made about Jaden Daniels, and rightfully so, how awesome he was during his rookie season, taking the Commanders to an NFC championship. But there was another rookie quarterback that took his team to the playoffs, and that was Bo Nix in Denver. And it's the same logic that applies when I was just talking about J.J. McCarthy, right? When you have a young quarterback on his rookie deal, you do everything in your power to surround him with talent. And that includes spending a ton of money at the wide receiver position. And this, to me, is a sneaky Davante Adams team. When we're talking about splashes, this could be one of them for the Denver Broncos. They have Cortland Sutton, who is a not too shabby wide receiver one, but certainly not, as prolific as the rest in the NFL that we've seen. So bringing in a guy like Davante Adams, I think, would take this offense to another level. They need some other things. They need another tight end, or really any tight end after last season. But a lot of those things Davante Adams can do. Talking about winning in the red zone, winning deep. These are things that Bo Nix should be able to improve on in year two. So bringing in Davante Adams, to me, would really ignite the Denver Broncos, possibly going to the playoffs for a second consecutive year.
Yeah, and you know what? Davante Adams straight up just has not been having a good time since he left Green Bay. Things did not go the way you thought they would out there in Las Vegas, and then, of course, not really with the Jets either. So I think this would be a good fit for him as well, to be behind a quarterback like Bo Nix, who is frisky and fun. All right, finally, your team in New England, the Patriots. They will have a league-leading $127.7 million cap space. How do they spend it, Sully?
Yeah, I know we're talking about splashes, but if we're talking to offensive linemen, it's more of a belly flop, right? Like, that's really what it is. And it's Ronnie Stanley in Baltimore. If he hits the open market, it's a clear need for the New England Patriots. Yes, it's fun to talk about star wide receivers and pass catchers and star players on the edge and defensive side of the ball. The Patriots found out last year, and they found this out the last couple of years, if they can't protect the quarterback, nothing else really matters. As promising as Drake May was last year, he was stunted a little bit because they could not block for him. And so if you bring in a Ronnie Stanley, who is certainly not the young long-term piece, but someone that could come in, solidify the left side, and then we can start to have those conversations of what's the next step at wide receiver? Do they add another running back? What's the plan on defense for Mike Vrabel? Those things we can then start talking about. But if you can't protect your star quarterback that's coming into his own in year two, then you're really not going anywhere as an organization.
Yeah, I always say absolutely nothing matters unless the O-line is good. That's our Tyler Sullivan. Thanks as always for your